Good morning, class 9. Today we will start a new civics chapter, Working of Institutions. Democracy is not just about people electing their leaders. In a democracy, the rulers have to follow some rules and procedures. They have to work with and within institutions. This chapter is about the working of such institutions in a democracy. We try to understand this by looking at the manner in which major decisions are taken and implemented in our country. We also look at how disputes regarding these decisions are resolved. In this process, we come across three institutions that play a key role in major decisions: legislature, executive, and judiciary. You have already read something about these institutions in earlier classes. Here we shall quickly summarize those and move on to asking larger questions. In the case of each institution, we ask, what does this institution do? How is this institution connected to other institutions? What makes its functioning more or less democratic? The basic objective here is to understand how all these institutions together carry on the work of the government. Sometimes we compare these with similar institutions in other democracies. In this chapter, we take our examples from the working of the national level government called central government, union government, or just government of India. It means the same. While reading this chapter, you can think of and discuss examples from the working of the government in your state. Now let us begin the chapter. How is a major policy decision taken? A government order. In short form, it is called as a GO. On August 13, 1990, the Government of India issued an order. It was called an office memorandum. Underline the word memorandum. Like all government orders, it had a number and is known by that. OM number, that is Office Memorandum Number 36012/31/90 EST, and in brackets Scheduled Caste and Tribes, dated 13/8/1990. The Joint Secretary, an officer in the Department of Personnel and Training in the Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions, signed the order. It was quite short, barely one page. It looked like any ordinary circular or notice that you may have seen in school. The government issues hundreds of orders every day on different matters. But this one was very important and became a source of controversy for several years. Let us see how the decision was taken and what happened later. This order announced a major policy decision. It said that 27% of the vacancies in civil posts and services under the Government of India are reserved for socially and educationally backward classes, SEBC. SEBC is another name for all those people who belong to castes that are considered backward by the government. The benefit of job the benefit of job reservation was still then available only to scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Now a third category called SEBC was introduced. Only persons who belong to backward classes were eligible for this quota of 27% jobs. Others could not compete for these jobs. So when this SEBC new category was created, there was a lot of controversy. Many people started opposing because they did not want such kind of reservation in jobs. The decision makers. Who decided to issue this memorandum? Clearly, such a big decision could not have been taken by the person who signed that document. That means only one person is not responsible for taking such a big decision. The officer was merely implementing the instructions given by the Minister of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions, of which the department was a part. We can guess that such a major decision would have involved other major functionaries in our country. You have already read in the previous class about some of them. Let us go over some of the main points that you covered then. President is the head of the state and is the highest formal authority in the country. Please learn all these things because they can be asked in multiple choice questions or in one word answers. President is the head of the state and the highest formal authority in the country. Prime Minister is the head of the government and actually exercises all governmental powers. That means Prime Minister is the actual role player, you can say. He has the actual role to play in all government powers. He takes most of the decisions in the cabinet meetings. Parliament consists of Parliament consists of the President and two houses, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Keep on underlining all these important points. The Prime Minister must have the support of a majority of Lok Sabha members. So were all these people involved in this decision regarding the office memorandum? Let us find out. This office memorandum was the culmination of a long chain of events. The Government of India had appointed the Second Backward Classes Commission in 1979. It was headed by B.P. Mandal. Hence, it was popularly called the Mandal Commission. It was asked to determine the criteria to identify the socially and educationally backward classes in India and recommend steps to be taken for their advancement. Who did this? The Mandal Commission. I am reading this again. Underline some important things. The Government of India had appointed the Second Backward Classes Commission. Underline all this. In 1979. It was headed by B.P. Mandal and it was called the Mandal Commission. It means the Mandal Commission. It was asked to identify the socially and educationally backward classes in India and recommend steps to be taken for their advancement. The Commission gave its report in 1980 and made many recommendations. One of these was that 27% of the government jobs be reserved for the socially and educationally backward classes. When this proposal was put forward, there was a lot of opposition throughout the country. The report and recommendations were discussed in the parliament. For several years, many parliamentarians and parties kept demanding the implementation of the Commission's recommendations. Then came the Lok Sabha election of 1989. In its election manifesto, the Janata Dal promised that if voted to power, it would implement the Mandal Commission report. The Janata Dal did form the government after this election. Its leader, VP Singh, became the Prime Minister. Several developments took place after that. The President of India, in his address to the Parliament, announced the intention of the government to implement the recommendations of the Mandal Commission. On 6th August 1990, the Union Cabinet took a formal decision to implement the recommendations. Next day, Prime Minister VP Singh informed the Parliament about this decision through a statement in both the Houses of Parliament. The decision of the Cabinet was sent to the Department of Personnel and Training. The senior officers of the department drafted an order in line with the Cabinet decision and took the minister's approval. And an officer signed the order on behalf of the Union government. This was how Office Memorandum number 36012/31/90 was born on 13th August 1990. For the next few months, this was the most hotly debated issue in the country. Newspapers and magazines were full of different views and opinions on this issue. It led to widespread protests and counter-protests, some of which were violent. As I just told you, when Mandal Commission announced this reservation policy, there was a lot of protests, there was a lot of opposition throughout the country, and it continued for many days. People reacted strongly because this decision affected thousands of job opportunities. Because many people did not want this reservation. They wanted that whether the person belonged to a general category or scheduled castes and tribes, opportunity should be given on the basis of merit and not on the basis of reservation. That is why there was a lot of opposition. People reacted strongly because this decision affected thousands of job opportunities. Some felt that existence of inequalities among people of different castes in India necessitated job reservations. They felt this would give a fair opportunity to those communities who so far had not adequately been represented in government employment. So there were mixed opinions. Some believed that this reservation policy for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes was a good opportunity for them because till now they were left alienated, they were in the background. Now they will get equal opportunities because of reservation, they will get equal job opportunities. But a large section of people in India believed that this reservation policy was unjust, especially for those who did not belong to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes category, and they believed that every job should be given on the basis of merit and there should be no reservation. Others felt that this was unfair as it would deny equality of opportunity to those who did not belong to the backward communities. Just now I had said the same thing. They would be denied jobs even though they could be more qualified. This was the biggest danger which people had in their minds, and that is why there was widespread unrest and opposition, because people believed that because of this reservation policy, those who come under this category of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, they would get more opportunity even if they were less qualified. Uh, they were not justified for that post, but still, because they came in this backward category, they would be given reservation, while those who were really talented people, they had all the capacity, capability and merit, they would be debarred, they would be deprived from getting good jobs, because they came in general categories, or they did not come in this backward class category. They would be denied jobs even though they could be more qualified. Some felt that this would perpetuate caste feelings among people and hamper national unity. This was another danger, that this would lead to casteism, this would lead to disuniting people and would hamper national unity. In this chapter, we won't discuss whether the decision was good or not. We only take this example to understand how major decisions are taken and implemented in the country. Who resolved this dispute? You know that the Supreme Court and the High Courts of India settle disputes arising out of governmental decisions. Some persons and associations opposed to this order filed a number of cases in the courts. They appealed to the courts to declare the order invalid and stop its implementation. The Supreme Court of India bunched all these cases together. This case was known as the Indira Sahani and others versus Union of India case. 11 judges of the Supreme Court heard arguments of both sides. By a majority, the Supreme Court judges in 1992 declared that this order of Government of India was valid. At the same time, the Supreme Court asked the government to modify its original order. It said that well-to-do persons among the backward classes should be excluded from getting the benefit of reservations. Accordingly, the Department of Personnel and Training issued another office memorandum on September 8, 1993. The dispute thus came to an end, and this policy has been followed since then. Need for political institutions. What is the need? Why should we have a legislature, an executive, and a judiciary? We have seen one example of how the government works. Governing a country involves various such activities. For example, the government is responsible for ensuring security to the citizens and providing facilities for education and health to all. It collects taxes and spends the money thus raised on administration, defense, and development programs. It formulates and implements several welfare schemes. Some persons have to take decisions on how to go about these activities. Others have to implement these decisions. If disputes arise on these decisions or in their implementation, there should be someone to determine what is right and what is wrong. It is important that everyone should know who is responsible for doing what. It is also important that these activities keep taking place even if the persons in key positions change. So why are these political institutions needed? So that work can be distributed equally and proper functioning is administered. If there is any dispute, then there should be one body, one supreme body to solve the problem. There should be one supreme body to implement the policies and programs which have been formulated. So for each and every thing, big or small, a particular institution is required. Only then proper functioning in the country is possible. So to attend to all these tasks, several arrangements are made in all modern democracies. Such arrangements are called institutions. A democracy works well when these institutions perform functions assigned to them. Underline this. A democracy works well when these institutions, which institutions are we talking about? The legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. These three institutions are assigned their separate duties. They have separate functions to perform, and they don't interfere in each other's matters. They look into their own affairs and they help in the smooth governance of the country. The constitution of any country lays down basic rules on the powers and functions of each institution. In the example above, we saw several such institutions at work. The Prime Minister and the Cabinet are institutions that take all important policy decisions. The civil servants working together are responsible for taking steps to implement the minister's decisions. Supreme Court is an institution where disputes between citizens and the government are finally settled. So we see how their functions are distributed and divided. The policy decisions are made by the Prime Minister and his cabinet ministers. Then the civil servants work together to implement those policies, those decisions which have been taken by the ministry. Then in case of any dispute between the decisions taken by the government and between the opinions of the citizens, the disputes are resolved by the judiciary. Can you think of some other institutions in this example? What is their role? Working with institutions is not easy. Institutions involve rules and regulations. They have their own rules and regulations. If they don't interfere in each other's matter, it does not mean that the legislature can do whatever it feels like. The judiciary can decide matter according to its own will. No, there are certain rules and regulations which each institution have to follow. Institutions involve rules and regulations. This can bind the hands of leaders. Institutions involve meetings, committees, and routines. This often leads to delays and complications. Therefore, dealing with institutions can be frustrating. One might feel that it is much better to have one person to take all decisions without any rules, procedures, and meetings. But that is not the spirit of democracy. Some of the delays and complications introduced by the institutions are very useful. We have seen earlier in the chapter when we were reading democracy that although the decisions taken in a democratic country may take some time, it is a delayed process, but because the decisions are taken after so many debates, discussions, and meetings, that is why they are often right for the country. They provide an opportunity for a wider set of people to be consulted in any decision, because in such a vast country like India, 1 or 2% cannot decide matters, and if they will, the decisions may go wrong. They will not be in the interests of the citizens. That is why lots of debates, discussions, and deliberations are held, then only policy matters are decided. Institutions make it difficult to have a good decision taken very quickly, but they also make it equally difficult to rush through a bad decision. That is why democratic governments insist on institutions. As I just told you, in a big democratic country like India, institutions are much needed, especially to decide matters, because two, three people or one person cannot decide things, cannot judge things, cannot interpret everything. For that, to look into each and every detail, to look into each and every interest of the citizens of the country, by and large, institutions are very much required in a country like India, so that they sit together, they may take some time to decide matters, they may take time to decide things, to come to one decision. But these deliberations, these meetings, these debates and discussions are very much needed. Then only correct decisions can be taken. So till here, the nutshell is that these institutions play a vital role in a democratic country like India. That is why these institutions must be there. Now in our next class, we will start a new heading, Parliament. Thank you, children.